Is it working? Okay, great. All right, good evening. I've got 6:31. I'm Mayor Tome here to call this meeting of the Columbus Common Council for Monday, April 5th, 2021 to order. Pat, when you're ready, could you please take a roll call for us?
Adams.
Present.
Gray. McCabe.
Here.
Pifferone.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Tome.
Here. Thank you. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, this meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. The next item is to approve the agenda for the evening. Unless there's any alterations or deletions, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
McCabe seconds.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Agenda is approved. We'll move on to correspondence and communications. Pat, did we have anyone signed up in advance on Zoom? No. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda for the evening then. We have the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from March 16th, 2021, and also an application for operator's license for the term of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2022, and that is for Paulette Miller. Any questions on the consent agenda? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Adams moves to approve the consent agenda.
Apart from sentence.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Move on to new business item number 1. Consider and take action on Rupert Milky Task Order 2021-03, 2021 Columbus UNPS grant application. This was reviewed at the last Committee of the Whole meeting. It's a task order for Rupert Milky to essentially complete the application process for this grant on the amount of $4,000. We have Jason available on Zoom if there's any questions on this, but it seemed like there was consensus to move forward with this at the last Committee of the Whole meeting minute, or the whole Committee of the Whole meeting. Are there any questions for Jason? If there are no questions for Jason, I'll entertain a motion to approve the task order with Rupert Milky for the Columbus UNPS grant application.
Adams moves to approve the task order for Columbus UNPS grant application.
Ray will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the Rupert Milky Task Order 2021-03 for the 2021 Columbus UNPS grant application. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please have a roll call, Pat?
Gray.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Pifferone.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Adams.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. New business item number 2, consider and take action on Resolution 8-21, the governmental responsibility resolution for urban non-point source and stormwater UNPS grants. I'm assuming this is a resolution that's tied to the last agenda item that would need to be adopted. If there's any questions on the resolution, we have Jason available for that as well. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 8-21.
Alder Ryan will make a motion to approve Resolution 8-21 Governmental Responsibility Resolution for, for urban non-point source and stormwater.
Alder Gray will second.
A motion and a second to approve Resolution 8-21. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. New business item number 3, consider and take action on the Fireman's Park Pavilion stair replacement project. There was a recent update today, so I'm just going to turn it over to Kyle so he can kind of help explain that.
Thank you. Based on the budget we have and sort of prioritizing which staircase is the most in need of repairs, and we talked to Attorney Johnson, it seemed like the best way to approve this would be to clarify in the bid document that we're only completing a single staircase at this time, which would be the south staircase. And then there's a few locations within the document where it says 2 or north and south, and we would clean that up. And then removing the reference to the unit pricing that's in the payment section. The attorney thought that would just clean it up and make it a better bid process. And then, depending on the budget funds available, we'll either do the north stairs next year, or potentially, if we have a really good year with limited maintenance, maybe we can squeak another one in this year, but we'll already have the specs then in hand.
Okay. Any further questions on that from the council?
I guess, Alder President, I do have a question. I guess I'm glad to hear that the unit prices were updated, because that's not how I would have personally recommended they're done. It just seemed like it's a little room for price overreach by doing them sort of a la carte style. And then the north and south stairs, again, it's being modified, but we were only doing one this year, and everything was referenced in north and south, so I'm glad that was remedied. And then I believe that covers it. Thank you.
Any other questions from council on that?
I do have just a quick
Okay, go
question.
ahead.
So in the scenario that they only do one this year, then they come back again for council approval for the secondary stair, or is that what that's kind of meant to clean up?
Yeah, and we would use a similar process next time, because the amount is going to exceed the purchasing threshold of the administrator and the department head. So regardless, the project would have to come back for council approval, but it just, to group them at this time didn't make sense.
Okay, yep.
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Go right ahead.
Regarding the unit prices, cleanup, I guess maybe my interpretation is different. Can you tell me how this cleanup, is it going to be put one bid number and then maybe like the informational bid, or what? I mean, because asking for demolition and concrete and footings and everything separate, in my mind's eye, it should be like one base bid number. And then if you want to separate everything, but how is Attorney Johnson cleaning it up?
Oh, Attorney Johnson, would you like to speak to that in particular?
Sure, I'm not sure I heard the entire question, but what I foresee happening here, excuse me, what I foresee happening here is that this project is gonna go out for, not necessarily for bids under the standard way that the city takes bids for bigger projects, but it's going to be a more along the line of a request for proposal type situation. And the bidders are gonna basically tell us what they're going to do and are going to give us a price. And the price is gonna be for the whole package, demolition, creation, materials, everything rolled into one. And that's what the city's going to be reviewing.
You answered everything for me, thank you.
Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from council on that? If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion from the council to approve the Fireman Park Pavilion, we'll call it the South Side Staircase Replacement Project.
Okay, we'll make a motion to approve the Fireman's Park Pavilion South Side Stair Replacement Project.
Reed seconds.
The motion is second for approval. Is there any discussion on the motion? Does that capture what we need to, or do we need to have additional language in the motion to cover the other concerns, I guess?
I think it was a fine motion.
Okay, all right. Since there's money spent on this, we will take a roll call.
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. On to new business number 4, consider and take action on the DNR forestry grant tree removal bid. We did get a $25,000 grant for forestry grant to remove a lot of the ash trees we have, and we also have a budgeted amount. I believe what we're looking for here is approval to send this out for bids for the removal of those trees. If there's any questions on this, let me know. This was reviewed at the last committee of the whole meeting as well. And this would go out, noticed in the paper, correct?
Correct, it would be published in a manner similar to when we go to the full bid process. So Beaver Dam newspaper would be the newspaper of choice.
Okay. Any questions from council on this one? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Alder Ryan will make a motion to approve the DNR forestry grant tree removal bid.
All of Pifferone seconds that.
Adams second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds for approval. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, could we please take a roll call on that one as well, Pat?
Pifferone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. New business number 5, consider and take action on Resolution 9-21, a resolution to support the City of Columbus Recreation Trails Grant Program application. We've got Matt Schreiber, our planning director, here to go through this. I think there was some updates since the last meeting. Hi, Matt.
Good evening. City Attorney Johnson looked over the resolution. There was a few edits that have been made, but the final draft is in your packet. Supporting and passing the resolution tonight will allow me to submit the grant application by the May 1 deadline. I really have nothing to add other than that, so.
Okay. Any questions for Matt while he's up? I see no questions. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 9-21.
Adams moves to approve resolution 9-21.
Reed seconds.
Motion in 2 seconds to approve Resolution 9-21, a resolution to support the City of Columbus Recreation Trail Grant Program application. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Resolution's been approved. Thank you. On to new business number 6. Consider and take action on the CSM for 898 Dick Street. This is a recommendation from the Plan Commission regarding the certified survey Matt application for 898 Dix. I see Matt still standing up there, and there was an update since the last meeting.
Yeah, because there was a quick turnaround time from last Plan Commission to the last council meeting, there was a few edits that we requested the surveyor make, and have been made, and they're in your final packet. I think one was Hibbard Street was listed, and they did, by statute, they have to show it since the right-of-way is there, but they have listed that it's unimproved. They showed the current location of the outbuilding, and they changed the line that separated, or there used to be 2 parcels, and they were combining it into one. They changed it to a dash line, so it was a little less confusing. So they made the changes as requested, and it's ready to be signed and recorded, so.
All right, great. Thank you, Matt. Any other questions for Matt while he's up? If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the CSM for 898 Dick Street.
Alder Gray will move to approve the CSM for 898 898 Dick Street.
McCabe seconds.
We have a motion and a second to approve the CSM for 898 Dick Street. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? CSM is approved. Thank you. New business number 7, consider and take action on Resolution 10-21, the adoption of the Roadmap 2050 plan. Matt, you're still up here, so I'll let you jump on that.
Really, I don't have too much prepared. Just the update, obviously, after the last meeting, I've updated the sample or the draft resolution that we have here to adopt the plan. And I know the mayor and I have talked about it, and also city attorneys looked it over, and they're really, there are no other comments other than that. I do know that Jason Valerius has joined us online tonight. I don't know if he wants to say a little bit or not, but, you know, I know that a lot of work went into this plan, and now is, I think, where a lot of the hard work begins, is taking what we have on paper and trying to make it a reality, so.
Hey, Jason, did you want to add anything this evening? It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, thank you. Like Matt, I didn't prepare anything. Glad to see you guys bring this back to the fore and proceed with the adoption and effort toward implementation. So it's a hefty to-do list, but optimistic that you've got the will and the roadmap to move forward.
Thank you, Jason. I can say, since I've been an advocate of this, even getting the funding, I think was probably close to 4 city councils ago. There's been a lot of work that's been put into this, and Matt's been a really big help on kind of keeping that plate spinning, especially in the last year and a half on this. I do think it's good for the city to have this, which is, you know, meant to complement the comprehensive plan with having some financial goals out there as well. So I'm glad that we're finally able to adopt this through resolution. Obviously, times change and finances change and conditions change, but I think it's a very important document with all the citizen engagement that was done through the process, the surveying that was done. I think that's really something that was overdue for the city, so it'll be nice to have that. I know that the intent was to try to adopt the comprehensive plan and this at the same time, but unfortunately, there wasn't a quorum for the public hearing at the Plan Commission meeting last week, so that will be coming forward probably in May, I believe Matt said, so.
Oh, you gotta push the button. Yeah, the next May 13th will be the public hearing for the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
At the regular scheduled, and then following that, it will come back to the COW, then the council for final approval, so.
Okay. All right, unless there's any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 10-21, the adoption of the Roadmap 2050 plan.
McCabe will make a motion on Resolution 10-21, the adoption of the Roadmap 2050 plan.
Adams, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 10-21, the adoption of the Roadmap 2050 plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Move on to item number 8, consider and take action on the updated donation policy. There were some updates from the last meeting reflecting comments from the council that Kyle incorporated. Kyle, I'll let you jump in if you want to address that.
All right, thank you. Just a few changes were made from the document you had seen at the last meeting. And essentially, we included as the supporting documentation a 2-page excerpt that contained most of the language updates, as well as a clean draft, again, of the final proposed draft donation policy for kind of easier reading. Section 5, we added just clarification that the approval for donations should come at the beginning, when the donation is received, versus holding donations and waiting for a purpose for them and trying to approve them at that point. 5.2.1 clarifies that committees and commissions are also allowed to accept monetary gifts and donations for funds and capital campaigns that have been previously approved or established. 5.2.2 also clarified that committees and commissions are allowed to accept unspecified gifts or donations, and that those funds should be deposited in a manner consistent with the intent of the donor, if that's known, or into an account that can only be used by the committee or commission that accepts the donation. So if there is a donation to the Recreation Committee, that shouldn't end up being used for fire department equipment unless that was the intent of the donor. Because when they're making it to those individual committees, I think it's reasonable to assume that, things that would match their purpose and their goal in existence would be, fair to segregate those funds for that. And then also we did the minor change in section 5.15 to clarify the term from will to shall for consistency. And I think early on in the policy, we also removed that underlining that had been kind of a legacy from the original. So those were the changes that were brought forward from the last meeting. And I guess looking for, feedback on if this is the desired policy or if we want additional changes. And so that's, those are the changes that are there right now.
All right, any questions from the council for Kyle on the updates that he's just reviewed? All right, if there are no further questions, I would appreciate a motion to approve the updated donation policy.
Mulder Committee will move to approve the updated donation policy.
Alder Ryan will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the updated donation policy for the city. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number 9 is a companion to the last policy, which would be updated purchasing policy. I think there was a few updates on that one since the last meeting as well. Let's see here. Looks like based on the feedback from the Committee of the Whole on March 16th, Kyle incorporated language to allow additional flexibility for staff to enter into contracts on behalf of the city within their purchasing limits. The new language also authorizes the city administrator to delegate signature authority to department heads for contracts that exceed their purchasing authority, but we're still within the administrator's purchasing authority. Kyle, I guess I'll let you explain any further, but that seems to make sense to me. I think that's reflects on what I heard at the last Committee of the Whole as well.
Yeah, essentially that's, that was captured very well and reflects just some operational flexibility for the administrator as well as department heads to sign off on contracts that are relatively minor in nature and already funded in the budget.
Any other questions on the purchasing policy for the city administrator? Ian?
And just one quick thing, like, I think this is great for the most part, but should we also include a time limit of a contract that they can sign up on? Like if there's a contract that lasts for 1 or 2 years, but a duration of a contract?
Would that be possible, Kyle? Or, I mean, I'm trying to imagine how many different types of contracts we do, short-term or long-term, for like a phone service or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it would be possible, and I think I would make it, longer than a single year. So I could see adding some language to the effect of, no contract longer than 2 years or 3 years, depending on the council preference. You may also want to add another line to that to say, if there's a time limit on the renewal of the contract, so that if it, you have to give a certain amount of renewal, we get, I guess, trapped in some of these contracts sometimes because they have really long periods of time that you have to give notification or you automatically renew. So if there's a desire for any specific language, we could add that, or we could bring it back with a couple options.
Okay. Paul, I think you were on first.
Just a minor typographical issue. Under B, authorization policies and limits, number 2, at the end of the sentence, paragraph, parentheses, sits 2.15, and there's no closing parenthesis.
Trina?
Oh, I'm just in agreement with Gray on his notion that there should probably be some type of time limit factor, perhaps contracts lasting over 2 years, or just some way to check on the automatic renewals for certain ones. I know with like just some of the credit companies, they can be a little bit slippery.
All right, well, if the council would like to, they can certainly table this for the next meeting to look at those revisions and add that additional language or see if it suits that.
Oh,
Go ahead, Trina.
yeah, it's such a small thing, but I would like to consider it. I don't know if it would be best to approve it and then look back on it, or just to table it and have it clean for later.
Whatever you'd like, yeah. Whatever the will of the council is.
Yeah, I'm in agreeable with you and Alder Gray on that, so I'm okay with bringing it back, cleaning it up.
Okay. If someone wants to make a motion to table the update of the purchasing policy to get some additional language about the contract length, et cetera, then you can review that again at the next, would you like it at the committee of the whole or at the regular meeting?
I would be comfortable with the regular.
Ian, you have your hand up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd be, exactly what Trina was about to say, I'd be comfortable with it going back to the regular meeting, just adding in that language. And, 'cause I think absolutely everything else in it is perfect, I just think a time limit on contracts would be wise for us to put in as well.
All right, if someone wants to make a motion.
I just had a question for
Okay, go ahead.
Trina,
Go ahead.
because I was confused. I didn't understand if she said you wanted to approve it this evening with the contingent that Kyle would make the amendments that council's asking for, or did you want to actually push it back? I just wasn't clear.
Oh, thank you. I was fine either way. I was just putting it out there to the council. It sounds like tabling it'll probably be a little cleaner.
Ian?
Alder Pipeline will make a motion to table the fixed asset surplus equipment policy.
That's actually the next agenda item.
Oh, sorry.
Number 9.
Alder Pipeline will make a motion to table the updated purchasing policy.
Alder Gray will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table the updating of the purchasing policy. I apologize, Ian, I saw you had your hand up while Paul was making a motion. Did you want to add anything?
Well, my only question, is it possible for us to adopt with the contingency to add in that language? Like, can we approve it with the contingency to add in that language, or is that not really, is that too, I suppose Paul's probably the best person to answer that.
You can approve the policy tonight if you want to, and then I think there would be 2 ways to address the issue that you're wrestling with right now. And either, way number 1 is try to hammer out this language that you're looking at right now so that Kyle has a pretty good idea as to what the words would be. And perhaps the better plan is to adopt what you have tonight and then have Kyle work on the addition, bring that to the committee of the whole for your next meeting, and then amend your policy 2 meetings from now. That's probably a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier.
All right, Ian, does that answer your question?
purchasing, update it now, and then just update it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a policy, so it could be updated every 2 weeks if you want to. So I agree. I think that the bulk of the policy has been updated and everyone agrees with it. I mean, I don't want to throw my finger on the scale here, but I think we're talking about the length of contracts, which I think the first intent was minor contracts, because we know those happen. And so I just don't want to hang up progress when we don't really know for sure how that would get put into this policy, whether it's under the minor contracts or maybe it falls under a different part of city policy to address those auto renewals and things like that we've dealt with. So if the council wanted to adopt the purchasing policy updates this evening and have Kyle bring something back to the next committee of the whole, we would have to have the motion and the second rescinded.
Alder Pifron makes a motion to rescind the previous motion.
Alder Gray will resend a second.
All right, then if someone wanted to make a motion to approve the updates with the contingency that Kyle brings forward some additional information about the contract length to the next committee of the whole meeting, that would be appropriate.
Alder Gray will move to approve the updated purchasing policy contingent upon the administrator bringing more options for contract lengths to the next committee of the whole.
Reed seconds.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the updated purchasing policy with the contingency that the administrator is going to bring back some additional information at the next committee of the whole reflecting contract renewals and lengths. Any discussion on the motion? There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move on to number 10, consider and take action on the updated fixed asset surplus equipment policy. I think there was some updates that Kyle reflected since the last meeting on here as well. Kyle, I'll let you address those.
Thank you. There was a desire last time after we discussed this to add some language, kind of setting a minimum threshold for when this policy would kick in, so that you're not getting overly bureaucratic with, each and every little thing. As I looked at how we apply this and how we dispose of equipment, I sort of realized we don't really dispose of a lot of small items on a regular basis. And so I did include some proposed language if the council would like to adopt it. But I also think that it's just as fine without it, because if you have these individual things, you can sort of accumulate them over time and then go to an auction or whatever when you have that critical mass of things to be sold. So I just think it could create additional complications for the administrator and staff to try to figure out what the fair value is of an item that's got a very limited market. So if there's a desire to incorporate this language or other language, I'm open to that. I also think that if we don't have a minimum threshold, what we'll be doing is accumulating larger quantities of stuff and selling them in bulk lots.
How does the council feel about the updated language? I mean, I highlighted it. I think that I like the spirit of it, because you're addressing something that, may or may not happen, but it still has to fall within the policy somehow. And I think every asset somehow has to be treated within the policy. So any questions for Kyle on this? What's the intent of the council? Katie, you have your light on. Did you have a question? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
So just for clarification, I included the language in the memo, but the language is not currently in the final draft of the disposal of assets policy.
Okay.
So if you approve the asset disposal policy as it's presented, you would be approving it without this language. If you approved it with this language to be added, that would then incorporate that into the policy. Or there's always the option to table it and take other looks at different avenues.
Okay. Trina, go ahead.
Oh, I just had one quick question. Let's see. Step 2 of steps for disposal. Wondering, it says finance director and transferred from one department to the other. Wondering if it should be finance director or city administrator? Just asking.
So this, the step described here is an accounting function, and it goes to the accounting of the asset and what department sort of owns it. So that's more of a finance director and auditor function than it is anything else.
Thank you for clarifying.
Katie?
I guess my preference would be to, at this time, leave out that language that you presented, Kyle. I think what you mentioned about sort of collecting those things over time, and whether it's an auction, garage sale, however you want to treat it. I remember when I was on recreation and Amy Jo was having a really hard time getting rid of some, I think, pretty dated cheerleader outfits, but since it went from it went, it was over that $100 threshold because it was purchased, but it's, things can get pretty sticky when it comes down to it. And I think, the amount of time somebody has to spend trying to get rid of something so mundane is wasteful and doesn't help anything. So I don't think it's necessary to really get that, I guess, nitpicky, when it comes to certain things, so.
All right, any other comments or questions on the fixed asset surplus equipment policy? Did you want to formulate your opinion into a motion, Katie?
So,
Technically, since that is, I can just approve it or we can just make a motion as presented, correct? Since that's in the memo and not in the.
Correct. If you approve it as presented, it would not include this italicized language that's only in the memo. It would just be literally as printed in the draft form. If you were wanting to include that, you would include that as part of the policy.
Okay. Okay. Alder Ryan, I will make a motion to update the fixed asset surplus equipment policy as presented.
Read seconds.
All right, we have a motion, a second, to approve the updated fixed asset surplus equipment policy as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. I wanted to thank Kyle. I know it was part of his goals, happy anniversary, Kyle. Today's his 1-year anniversary. To get these policies updated was part of Kyle's goals, and he actually got that done along with everything else we've been dealing with in the last year. So thank you for getting those done, Kyle. All right, we'll move on to number 11. Consider and take action on city claims in the amount of $374,699.68. Are there any questions on the city claims? If there are no questions on the claims, I'll entertain a motion to approve in the amount read.
Alder Pikeford will make a motion to approve the city claims in the amount read.
Adams seconds.
A motion and a second to approve the city claims in the amount read. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion, could we please have a roll call, Pat?
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe,
Aye.
Pifferone.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to report of city officers. I'll turn it over to Administrator Ellison so I can take a breath.
All right. Thank you. I have a few items to address, to inform you about. I think we've been talking about our wastewater treatment plant staff that we were expecting to start just after the last meeting, and they have started. Week 3 started today, and they've been great additions. Katie Anding is our Operator A, and she's coming up to speed very, very quickly. And so that's great. And Troy is also obviously been holding that department together as a single person and with the help of DPW. But Jake Haufelder is our operator B that joined us recently. And with Troy's help, he's learning the ropes very quickly as well. So it's all very good news, and the team is really coming together out there. So I think that's great. In other employee news, Finance Director Bob Geenan did notify us that he accepted a position at another municipality. So he'll be moving on here in the next week or two, and we've already started the recruitment process. And that ad will run for the next several weeks, and we have some interim help lined up with the existing master service agreement we already had during the first transition. So if you know anyone that's interested in the finance director position, make sure you spread the word, and hopefully we get a good recruitment there. In a similar note, the hiring process for our summer recreation and pool staff is already kind of going, and so we're ramping up in those areas to get ready for summer. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, sorry. And then speaking of the recreation program, this past weekend was the conclusion of the virtual egg hunt that Amy Jo had organized. I think there was about 400 kids that participated, and more than 8,000 eggs were distributed. And with the gold ticket prizes, there was about 1,100 of those that were given out to the different age groups, and that was all donations from the local businesses, and I think a lot of those were actually carried forward from last year when we weren't able to do a lot of the things. They didn't want their money back. They wanted to keep their money in and make it available the next time we had that opportunity. So I think just a lot of thanks to Amy Jo, to the businesses that donated for the prizes, as well as the volunteers that helped create the baskets for the kids and also helped distribute the prizes. So it was a fun event for the kids and families, and just on a nice warm weekend in spring, it was a good time to get out and enjoy the community. And then the last thing I have is that last week you might have heard some of the news about Amtrak expanding and potentially adding a new route into the Madison area. And their goal is to expand the network by adding some new stops and basically trying to increase their ridership. We're trying to learn more about their plans right now. I don't think it's exactly clear what the plans mean. And we hope to meet with an Amtrak representative relatively soon. I think it's encouraging that Amtrak is getting more resources, and that focus is a good thing. So I think we just need to understand that full strategy and what it means for Columbus. And so that is an ongoing effort, and we'll probably have more to report back on that at future meetings. And that's all I have.
Katie, did you want to say a few words?
So I guess it's that time already. Gotta turn this on. So this is my last meeting as a Columbus Council member. It was a whirlwind of a 2-year term. It has been my pleasure to serve this community. When I decided to run as a write-in in February of 2019, I had done so because my district was going to be completely unrepresented. I knew that I would have a lot to learn to serve the role sufficiently. I came in with the desire to understand how everything operated, and I was surprised by the complexity of the inner workings of city government. I have gotten the opportunity to meet and get to know many city staff and department heads through boards, committees, and commissions, and I have been very impressed by the work ethic upheld by those that I've encountered. My second year in the term, I was granted the opportunity to lead the city council as city council president. Having only a year of experience, there was another steep learning curve. The pandemic certainly brought out more challenges, from canceled meetings to Zoom sessions, and we navigated through all the chaos together. But I was really grateful for the support and guidance and wisdom that was given by Administrator Ellefson and countless members of city staff. I want to wish my fellow council members well in their remaining time on council, and thank you for serving our community. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mayor Tome, who has served in the last 8 years as a council member, council president, and currently as mayor. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Katie. Well, again, happy anniversary to Kyle. I can't believe it's been a year. It's been quite a year. I think you came in the day before the election last year with several court rulings. It just seemed like absolute chaos, and I've enjoyed working with you very much in the last year. I think you're a great fit for Columbus, and I think you're doing an outstanding job for the city right now. There's just been a lot of things to deal with since you've gotten here, and I'm very impressed with the amount of work that you've accomplished in the year, but it's been a pleasure working with you. I'm going to be brief this evening because I think I said what I wanted to say in December when I announced that I was not going to be running for a third term as the mayor of the city of Columbus. After being elected first in 2013 as District 3 alderperson, I never imagined I would be here this evening 8 years later, chairing my final meeting as the mayor of the city of Columbus. It was difficult for me to announce my decision back in December that I would not be seeking the third term as mayor, but this experience has been an honor and a privilege. I'm extremely proud of the work I've contributed during my time. I'm proud of the people I've worked with and how we've worked together. I've learned a lot, a tremendous amount while serving, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Our city employees at every level are the face of our community, and I'm extremely proud of the work they accomplish every day, especially during this very challenging past year. The city's in good hands and positioned well for the future. It's been an honor to serve my community these past 8 years. Thank you. And lastly, I wanted to thank those three hoodlums in the back over there, my wife Stacy, my son Campbell, and my daughter Carly, for their endorsement, support, and sacrifice for the past 8 years. Without them, I would not have been able to do any of this. Since I haven't used this once in the past 8 years, I would ask the council for the privilege of gaveling out an adjournment in recognition of my family's support.
Alder Piper makes a motion to adjourn.
All right. All right. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're done. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody on Zoom hear me okay? All right. I'm going to call to order the Columbus Common Council's Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, April 5th, 2021. Time is now 7:27 p.m. Pat, if you're ready, could you please take the roll call?
Adams,
Present.
Gray,
Present.
McCabe,
Here.
Pifferone,
Here?
Reed,
Here.
Ryan,
Here.
and Tom.
Here.
Okay. This meeting has been noticed with local statutes and state ordinances. Number 3 is on the agenda is to approve the agenda. If there are no alterations, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
McCabe will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Piper will second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, agenda's approved. Number 4 is citizen comments. We do have one person signed up this evening to speak. We have Chris Rolke. If you want to approach the podium and then touch the little talking face there, it'll turn on your microphone. There you go.
Okay, thank you for giving me a minute to chat with y'all. I am Chris Rolke. I am the quartermaster and the service officer for the VFW Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 8090 here in Columbus. I am coming before you as a representative of the VFW to encourage the city and city officials to move forward with whatever planning and coordination it takes to put on the Independence Day celebration. So, as a nurse by profession, I completely understand the topsy-turvy nature of last year and having to cancel the celebration. However, I also know that we are finally coming out of this pandemic, and hospitalization rates are lower, and the evidence does not support. There is no peer-reviewed evidence supporting the idea of outdoor transmission of COVID-19. It just doesn't exist. Most of our transmission right now is happening indoor in enclosed spaces. In fact, there's been not to be controversial, but comparing populations that stay inside versus outside, teachers are actually safer in the classroom than they are at home. Hospitalization rate of teachers who taught was lower than hospitalization rate of teachers who stayed at home. So that's just one peer-reviewed, evidence-based research that leads support to the idea that we can safely have the 4th of July celebration here in Columbus. And I just want to, I know there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things that have to take place for that to happen. And it is really the 4th of July celebration is for the VFW and the American Legion and the different organizations in the city. That's, a huge portion of our charitable fundraising time. And, another year without any substantial income for some of our nonprofits in town, some of our service groups in town, it'd be just decimating. So that's what I come before you today. I thank you very much for all that you've done in the last year, and hopefully we'll have smiles and sunshine this year.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to the committee commission minutes. Within our packets this evening, we have several. We have the Cable Commission, the CHLPC minutes, Columbus Water and Light minutes, library minutes, the PFC minutes, Plan Commission, and tourism minutes. Is there any questions or concerns from council about any of the minutes within our packet this evening? Seeing none, Move on then to number 6, which is review and discuss donation from Columbus Countryside Vet Clinic for stray animal chip reader for the police department. And if I remember correctly, I think it was Alder Gray that actually kind of threw this idea out to Chief Weiner when we were having some discussion previously. And Chief Weiner looked into or asked Countryside Vet, and sounds like they are willing to donate one. So thanks for that comment, Alder Gray. That was a great idea. And thanks for looking into it, Dennis. So Dennis, I don't know if you want to just speak to,
Sure, I'll talk for a minute, a little
Okay.
bit of background on it. Several months ago, with the renewal of the Humane Society contract, Alder Gray brought up, I was talking a little bit about our process when we pick up a stray animal, what we do, how we try to identify the owner. And we can always take them to Countryside Vet Clinic during business hours, and they'll automatically scan it for us. Dr. Gerber and his staff have been wonderful to us over all the years for this and for many other things. And after that suggestion from Alder Gray, the next morning I went and I started searching online for pet chip readers. And like every type of electronic out there, there's literally hundreds of them. And I didn't understand which one's better. Do you have to have a license to get access to records? All those types of things. So we reached out to the Countryside Vet Clinic and Dr. Gerber, asked them what they use and how the system and process works, and they offered to donate.
Wow.
It wasn't even a request. We were just looking for literature and what they use and how easy it is, and they just flat out offered to donate one to us. It's very simple. It's a small handheld device about the size of a cell phone that you scan the neck and also other areas of the body as well, because the chips can also move once they're embedded. And then it will, if there's a chip, it will produce a serial number, and we go to a website and can enter that serial number and find the dog's owner. So one thing to keep in mind is it's not foolproof. It's only if an animal is chipped, but it will also potentially save us time from a transport to Juneau, which is where the Humane Society is that we contract with. On many occasions, we have one officer on, and they're out of the city for 45 minutes to an hour to make that run. So I think the time saving, the efficiency is going to be really good for our department, and we really look forward to this. Dr. Gerber has physically provided our department with the device already. It's in a box in my office. I opened it just today just to see exactly what it was. We haven't used it and will not proceed in any way until this is discussed and potentially voted on at the next meeting. But we already have the device. It looks very simple to use. And again, Countryside Vet Clinic has been a great partner of ours in the city for many, many years, and we appreciate this donation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you to Countryside. That's very generous and very nice. Any other questions for Dennis? Is everybody okay then? Just move this forward then to the next meeting to be approved. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on then to number 7, which is review and discuss the Carico contract. And I believe I have Amy Jo here to talk us through the renewal of our water management contract with Carico for the Aquatic Center. Is that right? So within the packet then we just have, is this an updated contract or is it just the exact same? Oh, I thought you were gonna, sorry. Oh, okay.
Hello. This is the same contract that we have had in the past with Carico for our water management, and Attorney Johnson did have a few questions. He had requested that we change the date. I talked to Carico this afternoon. They'd be happy to change the date from when or if the contract gets approved so that Kyle can sign it. He also had a couple of questions in regards to consultation with Carico. In section 4, it says that Carrico has the authority to close the facility. I did talk to Justin, Jason, and Tom this afternoon, and basically, Attorney Johnson had recommended that the city of Columbus be read first, then Carrico. So let me try to find the exact wording for you. I apologize.
Fourth assumption on the first page.
Correct. It says, Carrico in consultation with the owner. Attorney Johnson recommended that we change it to say the owner in consultation with Carrico. Their recommendation was it's in place like that because they use the example that there was a municipal pool that had glass in there. And typically what they do is they recommend to totally shut down the pool. They drain it, they go through all the filters and all the equipment to make sure that there is no glass that would get through. There was a situation, they did not take Carrico's recommendation. They opened up anyway and somebody got hurt. So this kind of protects them by providing us with their recommendation as a water management source. So I guess we would still work with them. What do you feel about that? That's the reason they have it the way it is, worded the way it is, even though the city owns the pool. So that was a point that was brought up as well. And then he had also questioned, let's see, routine visits are mentioned in the two different places. So the price cost of the $26,600 is mainly for chemical costs and chemical usage that is at the pool. It also includes, they come once a month, they do a pool test on our water and they submit that to the state. If there's any issues with that, they make recommendations or help us along with our BEX controller and our chemical feeder on how to bring the pool back to a balanced, how to bring the pool back to being balanced. So if we ever have a problem with any of those items of equipment like the chemical feeder or the BEX controller, they'll come on site within that day and to calibrate it to get it to where we need to be. So the 26.6 does include the monthly state reports that were provided to us and the city and the state, and then any maintenance needs on the equipment that the city owns. Does that clarify that, Attorney Johnson? Does that make sense?
Maybe, sort of. It's not a question of whether it makes sense, it's a question of making sure that the city understands what they're paying for and what they're not paying for. That's more the concern that I have.
Is there a certain way that you'd like it reworded to be more specific?
Well, it's, the reason that it caught my eye the first time around is there are places in the agreement where it says routine maintenance are cleaning, filling chemicals are okay, but Carrico comes out for routine visits, and then in the Article 4.1, then it says monthly visits. So are routine visits and monthly visits the same? If a monthly visit is part of the 26.6, but any other time that they're coming out, and the example that you used this afternoon is, on a moment's notice, okay, is the city gonna get a separate bill for that, or is that part of the 26.6?
That's part of the 26.6. Routine maintenance would be helping us with closing and the startup in the beginning of the year.
Then it would be nice to just say what exactly is in the 26.6, because a monthly visit would not be on a moment's notice visit.
Okay. I can ask for them to,
That's the only point that I'm trying to make there.
and you had also questioned about the perpetuating one-year contract.
Yeah, 5.1 and 5.2, it has to be one or the other. It can't be both. And 5.2 would be preferable.
5.2 is preferable. Okay.
So scratching 5.1 if possible.
So you
So-
wanted to read just
Well, a contract, if a contract contract can't be self-perpetuating and for a limited period of the 2021 pool season. I mean, those are opposites.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little taken back by all this, because this has been the same contract that I've been dealing with for the last 10 years. So I will have a better conversation with Carico and get a little bit more clarification on those things, and then bring it back to the committee of the whole.
These are pretty simple fixes, actually. I mean, in my opinion, they're pretty simple fixes.
So in theory, if I'm understanding correctly, Amy Jo, the 26.6 should encompass everything except these two other things that they note here of the 6,650 or,
Well, those are, we pay them quarterly throughout the season.
okay.
To total
Yep.
the 26,300, and then we pay
Sorry.
them a one-time $300 to cover all of our deliveries for the acid and the chlorine.
And unless there
briquettes.
was any access over that 26.6, is what it says. All chemicals in excess of 26.6 will be purchased by the city of Columbus at the current commercial wholesale price, so.
And I can say in 10 years, we've never gone over.
Even with the leaks and stuff last year, we've never gone over
We have
that
not.
amount, okay. That was, I guess, my,
So I'd be happy to make those changes and then bring it
Okay.
back, committee of the whole.
do we feel like she needs to come back to the committee of the whole or come back to the regular meeting? How does council feel about that?
Amy Jo, what's your timeline looking for?
Carico is coming the week of May 7th to start our maintenance and get everything up and running. So I think we have a little bit of time yet. I know last year with COVID, we didn't sign it until July because of everything that was kind of happening, so.
Next meeting
Would
is
be the
when?
April
20th?
And then the first meeting in May would be May 4th? And we're going to have them out when? May when?
May 7th.
May 7th, okay, so that would still fall
Give you a
underneath.
couple of days, but.
Yeah. My main concern here is that, this, like you said, this is a contract that we've kind of been approving for 10 years, and now that we're finding language that needs to be tweaked, it's important to probably get that right. And there's going to be potentially several different people up here, and I think for them to look at
And
this
understand
contract
it.
and figure it out, it would probably be better to have it at the committee of the whole to make sure that you've got everything ironed out before approval. That's just my suggestion.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that? Trina, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. Wanting to re-ask if an emergency call counts as part of the regular visits, or would that count under the 7.6 service calls for paying $115 an hour?
Right.
If there was an emergency, like a chemical or spill, something, then we would be billed for their help and their assistance in getting the pool closed down in a safe environment. But if we called them to say, hey, we can't get the chemical feeder, the grate is broken, they'll be there and they don't charge us. That's included in the 26.6?
So if it has to do with the equipment specifically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've come and assisted on a lot of that stuff. We have to calibrate the probes. Sometimes the probes don't work. They have to actually physically calibrate them.
Okay.
That's something that Kane and I can't do. So they come out and help with that type of stuff, but
So what constitutes as an emergency then would be like the situation that you described with the glass in the other municipality?
something way beyond our
Something
normal
beyond their equipment's
malfunctioning.
malfunctioning or something of that nature, okay.
Big stuff,
Okay.
which will never happen, we hope, so. Yeah, knock, knock, knock.
Okay,
So, yeah, I'll be happy to bring this back.
okay, thank you. All right. We'll then move on to number 8. And, oh, go ahead, Ian.
Just a quick thing, it sounded like one of the primary concerns were what's included in the 26.6, but I think 7.6 does fairly well define what's included and what we would get billed outside of it. And honestly, I'm personally agreeable with 5.1 or 5.2. 5.2 is better for us, but either way, we will likely renew this contract, whichever way they go. So I don't know if there's enough that needs to be changed, that it has to go back to a committee of a whole, that as long as we get those changes done and it's there, I think it could come back to just the regular council meeting and be approved right away, so that we're not delaying anything. Because I don't think there's enough things that are that egregious that it's going to be that difficult or needs more discussion. We just get those couple little things fixed and bring it back to the regular meeting, personally. I agree with Paul, with Attorney Johnson that 5.1 and 5.2 are contradictory, but I don't believe that either are bad. It's just one or the other needs to be out of the contract. So whichever one leaves the contract, it really doesn't matter that much. And 7.6 does clear up what is included in the 26.6 pretty well. Like, I don't think there's a huge problem here that we need another committee of the whole. And Attorney Johnson's nodding his head. Like, I think it could just go back to the regular meeting.
Right, the issue, I agree with Ian, because the issues that I'm raising are not earth-shattering. The one that bothers me the most is the language in the fourth assumption that Carrico could shut down the pool without the city's consent, basically. That's how that reads right now. That just seems backwards to me. 5.1 or 5.2, one or the other, pick one. And 7.6 does help define a little bit better, and my only concern there, again, is just making sure that the council understands what it's paying for and what it's not. And Amy Jo has a whole lot of institutional experience with these people and hasn't been burned yet. So that, which is really good, but that's just one of those things just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I agree, these aren't earth-shattering problems that need to be worked through. They're little things that just need to be cleaned up.
Okay, so with that, what Ian's asking, do we want to bring this back to the COW or the regular meeting? Go ahead, Trina.
Oh, I guess I just wanted to say that 5.1, it seems a little odd at first, but it doesn't bother me, since there's language that it's self-perpetuating unless either party, for whatever reason, wishes to terminate. It's gives enough wiggle room on both parties that it has to be not concerning.
If you use the language of section 5.1 on its face, that would also mean that the price never changes.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Which is a great thing. Which will require Carrico to basically terminate the contract every year anyway, which throws you right into 5.2. So if you have a self-perpetuating contract, then then if you're Carrico, you're going to want something that says this goes up 3% each year or something like that, until it gets too expensive, and then somebody will terminate it anyway. But that language isn't in there either, so it doesn't work like it is.
Okay, as far as,
No, I'm okay
ahead.
bringing it back to a regular meeting if Amy Jo is comfortable with going back to them and with the information she has.
I am comfortable, but just clarification in the fourth assumption, do we want the words to be reversed so that the owner is in consultation with Carrico, or keep it as is with Carrico is in consultation with the city or the owner?
Kyle, Administrator Ellefson is going to chime in here. I don't know if it answers your question or not, but go ahead.
Well, that's the item I wanted to talk about. I think it does make sense to reverse the words. That offers the most protection to the city. And Carrico's a company that we've had a history with, so we haven't had a problem, which is great. That doesn't mean that's always going to be the case. And in the event during a pandemic, they could have come in with this language and said, we don't agree with your opening plan. We don't think it's safe enough unless you buy the extra $10,000 Carrico hand sanitizer station.
Right.
We're not going to authorize you to open up. Now, that's a pretty far-fetched example, but it does kind of put the roles reversed of what I believe they should be as the owner of the facility. So, I mean, we would obviously be in consultation with them anyways, but the final say should rest with the owner of the facility, I think.
I do agree.
I'll get
And
that
in the
reversed.
situation that you described, you know, the example of the glass falling into the pool or breaking into the pool, even in that scenario, it doesn't protect them that much. If we refuse to follow their recommendation, I don't believe it falls, like,
them.
insurance-wise back on them. It would fall on us. So therefore, I don't see a reason that they would need to protect themselves in that fashion. But,
Okay,
so that should be easily reversed.
I would think so.
My suggestion of bringing it back to the committee of the whole was mostly based upon the fact that we see a lot of contract language that could be cleaned up fairly quickly. But if Carico has had the same language for 10 years and they say, we're not changing that, it needs to stay there, I think it gives Amy Jo some time to find out whether they're going to work with us and say that's fine. I think we've had a lot of conversations at the council level about contract language where we specifically had to get to a certain place and we did not get there, and we still had to consider whether or not we're going to accept that contract language or not. My concern is bringing in new people that maybe don't know the 10-year history of this, and then also having to have a long drawn-out conversation at the regular meeting about contract language rather than having a committee meeting. That was my recommendation, and that's why I stated that. If the council wants to do something different, that's completely fine. But I do think that there should be some discretion given to Amy Jo, that if she starts getting pushback from Carico, that they're not going to change that language, that you'd probably want to make sure it shows up at the correct meeting in the future, so the council can understand the recommendations and whether or not Carico is going to follow those. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I think that is an excellent recommendation. If anybody else is opposed to it coming back to the regular meeting, if the changes. Ian?
That was my intention of what I was saying, so I agree with the mayor in that. I think Amy Jo will knows well enough if they're going to change the language, and if it's not changed, then of course it should go to a committee of the whole. I apologize if I didn't state that clearly enough.
Okay.
Okay, I know what to
Alright.
do. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on then to number 9. It's the longest you've been at the podium in quite a while. This is review and discuss participation fee increase for the athletic field use and facility agreements. You can kick us off while I find my page, if you don't mind.
So are we doing the participation increase or the facility use agreement first?
The renewal of the athletic field use and facility.
Okay.
So it's all,
So, basically, Recreation Committee would like to recommend that we renew the contracts with the Columbus Baseball Organization, Columbus Softball Association, and the Columbus Area Youth Soccer Organization. Their contracts are all set to expire May 5th of 2021. But I do know that it was recommended to the Recreation Committee that if the contracts could be backdated, for example, from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. And the reason for the request of my rec committee, they came to a couple of meetings, was that in the spring is when they hold their registration. And that way, in January, if there are any price changes, they're aware of it when they begin their registration process, and they can collect those fees as part of the registration. To me, that makes sense, rather than having mid-year when the registration's already done.
sure,
That make sense?
makes sense.
So in sense, we'd be backdating these current year contracts to January. Or would we start it moving forward, because they've already done registration this year, and that next year's contract would be 1/1/2022.
Do we really need to backdate it or just make this one less than a year long?
I'm not sure.
Paul Johnson is shaking
Yeah,
his head.
you can do a short year if you want to do May 5 of 20, well, if you want to do May 5 of 2021 to December 31 of 2021 and then go on your annual, that work fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem there at all.
I think that maybe is just a
Any
little cleaner.
questions?
Any concerns or questions from council? When was the last time, so this was updated
Last spring?
last spring, so it's every year now?
It has been every year,
Or-
and I think there's been some changing in the
I-
structure of their board members and stuff, so we've just done the 1 year.
I guess I'm sorry, I didn't ask the correct question. What I was
Okay.
asking is what I meant to ask was, when was the last time the fees were increased? Just like
10 years ago.
10 years ago, okay. 'Cause I remember talking about this on recreation, and
Yep.
it was a long time, and yeah, there was a
It's
lot
when
of pushback.
when I
so-
first started with the
Yeah.
city is when we used to actually have a 3-tiered level of participation payment to the
Right.
city. So, and it was recommended by council at the time just to make it a flat fee across the board. So it's been quite a while. So this is gonna, what do? We have to do something with this and then go to the next one, or are these two separate issues? I don't know if I should keep talking.
Um, So currently it's all in the same agenda item, so you can move on. Oh, is it, oh, I'm sorry.
I thought it was 2.
I'm sorry, yes. So renewal of the athletic field contracts, and then in number 9 is the athletic field use, I'm sorry, and the facility agreements. Go ahead.
Scott Elaine has his hand raised, he's the representative from,
Columbus Baseball Organization.
I don't know if you want,
He has his hand raised?
like in the, if you look at the Zoom,
Oh.
he's Zoom hand raised.
Hello,
Oh.
Scott. Would you like to say something? You look like you're in a very warm place.
Ironically, it's actually probably warmer in Wisconsin right now. but,
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's still pleasant. Quick question, just for clarification, we're still in contract until May 5th, which is in April when our registration closes. That's when we make our payment to the city. So are we still in 2021 making our payment per our contract, which is due May 5th? And then going forward, I agree and totally support the January to December 31st, as we typically determine our fee structure in December and January, and then open up registration in February, close it in April, and make the payment to the city for our participants.
That's the way I would understand it, because your registration does end in April before the contract expires. So you would pay the city the $5 participation fee this year.
Excellent. That's really my only question. And then 2, going forward next year, with the increase, there's no fluff in our registration fees. A lot of our registration fees are kept to the bare minimum and supported by fundraising efforts. And when we have any increase, obviously we have to, pass along some of those fees. And so, not to take tonight's meeting, but I know we've spoken about it, or I've been told about it. I just want to be able to, if people ask, hey, why do we have these increases, or what are these for? As the organizational leader, I just want to be able to articulate where these fees are, whether they're assessed by insurance or player fees or the city. I just want to be able to articulate where this fee is going to and what it's supporting going forward. But that's my only question at this point. Thank you.
Amy Jo, if you'd like to
Sure.
try to answer that.
I don't know where to begin with this one. Okay, the CBO is a little bit different from the Columbus Softball Association, where they actually hire a contractor that drags and lines their fields. But the additional fees that we collect would be used to help offset maintenance costs, to purchase the bases, to purchase agri-lime, items needed in the shed, like bases and things like that. An example I'd like to bring up for in 2019, roster participation was down, but the same amount of games still took place. So we had collected from one of the organizations $320, but by the time we added in the cost to drag and line the fields, the city paid $1,300. So we're not trying to break the banks of these organizations that work well with the city. They do a fantastic job, but just trying to recap and get back a little bit more of the money to help offset those maintenance costs. That's why we decided just to go a flat fee across to just at $10. And that's one of the reasons we haven't raised the prices in 10 years either. Because they do a great job of running the programs for the city. So,
But unfortunately, in the meantime, hourly wages, things are going up and,
Right.
that the maintenance to maintain the fields is.
yeah.
is
So
more.
basically, it's to
So-
offset the cost for the agri-lime, purchase of bases, maintenance needs of, dragging and lining and balancing out the fields and such.
Yeah.
So,
Does that answer your question, Scott?
Yeah, it answers our question, and like the last contract you guys were just talking about, I would just want more, clarity in that contract as to what the city's gonna provide versus what we're responsible for. Just so there's that clarity, especially as, new board members come and go, that way that contract's very clear as to what each, organization, versus the city's responsibilities are.
so it's my understanding that all of the contracts between the organizations all read exactly the same. The CBO, the city does agree to supply the storage space and a key for Kiwanis Park building to store their equipment and the use of the concession stand, and purchase spaces as needed. That's something that the Recreation Department does. And then the CBO agrees to contract with a private business to adequately dress and line the ball diamonds. They provide their insurance certificate, and they'll be responsible for registration. So otherwise, Scott, everything actually reads the same. Was there something different that you wanted added from when Paul and Dave came to the recreation meeting that I'm not aware of?
Well, I guess if it's across the board increase, like you said, I just want to make sure that we're able to articulate any increases. And at this point, I may be totally off base, but in my experience with the organization is, we do contract with, to provide field maintenance. We put a lot of work into there. We pay our umpires. We don't get the same services that other organizations do in terms of lining and maintenance, and that's several $1,000s a year too. So,
And
if I understood correctly, the last time the fee structure was just for priority use of the diamonds at Kiwanis and Fireman's Park. And that's why that's not the case, and it's actually for staff time or mowing or other maintenance items. I just really want that to be in the contract as to what this $10 is gonna go to.
I guess I'm kind of surprised by this tonight. We did meet with Dave and Paul. We have had conversations with the Columbus Baseball Organization before that I don't know if you're up to speed on that, where the CBO has always wanted to do their own ground maintenance. Last year, CBO requested a special keypad on the storage shed, so we put one on there. That was actually about $300. So there are things that we do try to help and accommodate you with. No questions asked, because it's a great program that you're running for the city. I guess I wish we would have had this discussion at the rec meeting when they were there. Otherwise, it would have brought the changes forward. Are you asking for changes, Scott, or what?
Statutory changes just are not changes. I'm asking for just clarity as to what the fees include. Fees,
It's breaking up.
I think it's our connection, yeah.
I just saw the existing one. I just wanted.
Scott, I'm sorry, we're having some issues. I don't know if you can hear me. We barely got anything of what you just said. Ian, I'm
Can
gonna,
you hear me?
A little
it's
better.
breaking up a little bit, but Ian, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Oh, I called on, sorry, I called on Alder Gray. He's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to let him speak. Go ahead, Alder Gray.
So a concern that I have that it sounds like they have already collected fees for use of this year, but the contract in place for the field expires May 5th. So that's a big problem. And more so than anything else we're talking about, they have collected fees for a field that they do not have the right to use for the year yet. That's a problem. So this needs, these contracts, their fee collection and the dates that we rent out this field, they need to come in line because they are not currently. And that's really the issue we should be figuring out, in my opinion.
Okay. Amy Jo, I guess I'm going to throw it to you. With the concerns that we've heard this evening from Scott, Scott, I guess I don't understand if you're asking us, if you're wanting Amy Jo to put that language into the contract prior to approval, or if you're just asking for clarification from Amy Jo to just let you know exactly what those fees are typically used for.
I'm confused also.
Okay. Am I okay?
Yep, you're okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I don't think it's as much as a problem right now, because like Alderman Gray stated, is we've already collected fees for the 2021 season, and the city, with this current contract, are honoring the $5 per player fee going through 2021. I think Amy Jordy kind of addressed it with the CBO of next contract, that would go January 1st to December 31st, and that's when the increase would take place. And that's really all I'm just requesting, is just a little bit more clarity of what the expectations are from the city and the CBO in that future contract, if that makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense to me.
Okay. All right. Ian, go ahead.
So the problem is, Scott is under the impression that they have a contract for 2021, but they do not. They have collected fees, and they do not have a contract for 2021. I don't understand why no one else is seeing this. That's a problem.
Thank you, Ian. Paul Johnson, I'm going to let you chime in instead of just nodding your head.
I was agreeing with Ian every
Yeah.
step of the way. There's a significant disconnect between the timing of this agreement, the collecting of the fees, and the implementation of the agreement, and it's not going to work very well.
Sure. So how should we fix it is, I guess, the next question.
And that was one of the reasons, if I may, that they had asked that we change the contract to the first of the year, because by the time this discussion was taking place, the registration had already started, and they've collected a majority of their registration. Our goal all along is not to discourage these outside organizations from running programs for the rec department, and I don't want to get to the point that it's all thrown back on me. They're a huge help to the city. And I get both sides of the coin, I really do. But they've already collected half of their registrations, if not all of them, before this conversation took place. So
I'm going to turn it over to Administrator Ellison.
Yeah, so I think the contract as it sits, if it's in a poor position, that's the actual conditions we find ourselves in. So dealing with it moving forward, if we do adopt a partial year contract to go to December 31, with the anticipation of honoring the fees that they've already collected based on, we write out this year based on those assumptions, whether they were right or wrong. On January 1st, we enter a new contract, and everyone knows that what the fees are going to be, and it runs for that season that they collect the fees for versus this split collection versus actual use arrangement. And then, I think you would find yourself next year in a good position to just on an ongoing basis pair the fee collection with the year of use.
Which I think was the intent, yes. Go ahead, Ian.
So I think the best way to resolve this, in my opinion, would be to amend the existing contract to extend until December 31st. And then we create a new contract January 1st. So we're not raising fees this year. We're not doing anything. We're just extending their current contract until the end of this year. No fees change or anything, and then we can talk about the fee increase with the next contract. I don't think a short-term contract is the best route. I think we amend the existing contract to extend it until the end of the year.
I like that. Attorney Johnson, do you have any issue with that?
No, that works fine. It basically has the same effect as doing a short contract, except this way you're leaving all the terms exactly the same and just changing your date, and that works perfectly fine.
Okay. Thank you. Is everybody in agreement that all right, I'm seeing all the nodding heads. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Amy Jo.
Thank you. Thank you,
One
Scott.
more.
Thank you.
Okay, so the review and discuss participation fee increase for the athletic field use and facility agreements. So this one's
What item did you say? Are we talking about the fee increase?
fee increase, yes.
So should we just table that until next year when we bring back a new contract?
That's what I was, yes.
Would that make the most sense?
Mayor Tom?
That's what I'm trying to navigate myself here, because we're talking about specific language and dates in specific contracts, and we're talking about fees. I think if you want to increase the fee, my understanding is that you have to approve the fee structure annually for all the fees in the city, and maybe it's just best to do that during the budget at the end of the year, is to agree if that's going to increase or decrease. It seems like you're doing it before the end of the year, then the changes wouldn't take effect until next budget year, but that seems like the cleanest way to do it.
So when she's updating her budget? Or the whole
Well, when the city's doing their budget as a whole, you have the entire fee structure for every fee that we charge in the city, and I think that's got to be on that list, I assume. So I think just updating that list at that time would get the job done. That's, seems to make the most sense to me and the simplest way to do it.
And unless there's any specific athletic field use or facility issues that you wanted to address sooner than that, nothing.
None on my
I
end.
just wanted to make sure that this was being treated as multiple items, because I didn't really get that when we were going through the first conversation, because I think there's concerns coming from them about a fee increase, but then we're finding all these other issues with the contract and having to extend the contract for the year, et cetera. But they are two separate issues that,
Just to be clear, I
Align.
did have conversations with all these organizations about the fee increase. They've all come to the recreation meetings and had discussions, so. I just wanted to make you
and I'm
aware
not
of
saying that you have to
Oh, I
wait
know.
either. I
I'm
mean, you
just
certainly could,
putting that
have
out there.
the council in a month agree to an increase
Right.
and have that applied to the fee structure as well. It's a horse apiece, I guess, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're having separate conversations.
Trina, did you have
Oh,
a question?
No, I was just going to suggest this come back, probably sometime around November, so it's ready for the fees to take effect in January. Just,
Will do.
not waiting actually until the following year.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Amy Jo. All right. Number 10, review and discuss electric vehicle charging station. For that, we have our economic development director, Matt Schreiber. Hi, Matt.
Oh, So, from the last meeting, there are a few updates. Most notably, both the CDA and Tourism Commission met since the last council meeting. And both of those meetings, the CDA and Tourism have agreed to fund basically the remainder of this project, with CDA contributing $2,000 and the Tourism Commission approving up to 39, almost $4,000 for this project. So really there is no longer a request to the general fund at this time for any support for this project. I think one of the other things that have been determined is that behind City Hall is a place where the electrical service is there and readily available, where we could put these behind City Hall. I think one of the other items in the memo that I noted was, I think there was a discussion on the cost of, or putting longer cords rather than an 18-foot cord, based on the feedback from our rep at Carbon Day. That would approximately add about $1,000. Essentially because if you wanted the longer cords, you had to get like the next model up, so it ended up costing the city more money. And then there was also a discussion on wall versus bollard style, and there would be an additional cost for a different mounting kit. But so that's really the update. I don't know if Mayor Tome has anything to add to that, but I mean, really, at this point, I think with the CDA and Tourism Commission support, we're now just asking for council support for this project.
Got a quick question, if that's okay?
Yep.
For the level of the chargers, are we leaning more towards the level 2 or the level 1 chargers? Personally, I think I'd be going more towards level 2, but that's just my own preference.
No, yeah, they will be level 2 chargers. Actually, the one we have behind City Hall right now is a level 1 charger, and as I understand, basically that is more of an in-home technology now because it takes about 10 hours to charge. So having the level 2 gives you that rapid charge that will help attract people into our community to charge their car and hopefully go and spend their money in the downtown area. So.
Also, would these be visible to, I think there's technology out there where these charging stations have the capability of being visible to the electric vehicles where it'll ping and it'll show them that they can come and charge in Columbus?
Yeah, so on the last page of the memo, there's 2 maps. One is plug share and the other is charge point. So obviously once we're up and running, the void that you see where there's no EV charging stations in Columbus, that will be now on the map. And the great thing is for the charge point, once you're in that network, people will find it via their cell phone. So it's I would say idiot proof, but I mean it's gonna help. The people who are using the system will find it, I guess is my point.
Time for everyone to turn the page. Thank you.
Trina.
Oh, thank you so much for the good news on the funding. That's wonderful. So I'm trying to tell, did we decide on the 18-foot cords to not add the extra $1,000?
From my understanding of the email going back and forth between Eric with Carbon Day, who would be installing this, the 25-foot is generally used for like a fleet charging station for like a large truck. That's why they can't just switch the cords out. They have you buy a different model which has a longer cord. But he didn't have any examples where there was any concerns from any prior people that had these installed with the cord length. So he didn't think that was an issue that we could be concerned with unless we were charging fleet trucks or something of that nature. So.
Thank you.
I appreciate you looking into that, and I did bring that up as a concern, and it sounds like it's not a concern, and the 18-foot cords are plenty, so I really appreciate the legwork on getting that information to us.
Thank you.
I guess my only other question is, do we want to pay the additional, I assume that they'll, Matt, you said the wall mounted versus the pedestal mounted, there was some concern that the last meeting, I think.
Yeah,
that there was some rust that could develop, or that's been an issue, is that?
That came from Dave Durnberger from DPW, where he mentioned that they had this at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, and that they had some issues with corrosion. And he was recommending the wall-mounted if possible. Essentially, as I understand it, though, the wall-mounted, even though it says wall-mounted, technically they don't have to go on a wall. They would go on a bollard, but they'd sit up higher. So, I think one of the things we're looking into is, if you can do it on a bollard style where it sits up off the ground, where you don't have the issues with the salt and corrosion. I don't have a final answer on that yet, but I mean, that's something that we're, I think we feel confident we can accomplish, but I don't have the definitive answer tonight, so. The other thing that I should mention is, for still to be determined that council will definitely need to assist with, is any sort of ordinance that would have to be developed in order to enforce any sort of parking for EV charging stations if we wanted to, regulate how people can park in these EV charging areas. So right now, I don't believe we have anything on our books regarding that, so. I should say books, ordinances.
Mayor Tome, did you want to speak or?
Sure, I agree with Matt. I think there are signs up in some of the designated spots with the level 1 chargers, but probably putting something on the books to prevent people from using them as parking spaces when they're supposed to be meant for charging would be a good step. And I don't think that would be too difficult to add some language to prohibit parking there. The other thing to recognize as well is the parking costs. They're termed parking costs for a reason, because the Public Service Commission doesn't really allow you to meter the charging. Like, you can't charge for the electricity. You have to charge a set amount for parking to charge in those stations. I tried to look and saw quite a variety of fees from free to quite expensive based upon location, but my understanding of going with the Assure service with ChargePoint is that you can pretty much custom craft your fee structure. You get a monthly report, of who's using it and how much, revenue you've generated, et cetera. So I think you can customize that fairly quickly, but it might be something you'd want the CDA or Tourism Commission to look at from a tourism standpoint, as far as, do rates change on the weekends or time of day or something like that. But I think they'd be a good group to ask for a recommendation.
Obviously, they're contributing to
Yeah.
the purchase of it, so.
I think there's also going to be the question, once the unit is installed, it's all automated, so any revenue generated is going to get directly put into a line in the budget as a revenue, and who's going to get that money, I guess. Does it go to the general fund? Does it go to a source to help sustain the program or whatever? I'm not really sure, but that's a future discussion for the council to have. But we would have to designate where that revenue would be going to. The city will own it, but they'll be paying for the electrical that it uses as well. So it's good that we can pretty much take the old charger and upgrade it to a level 2 charger. So I think the expense is minimal there, and that's really good news. So.
Okay, so that was just essentially update, or are we still waiting then to hear?
I think really, it kind of, as I said, really the big action item is at a certain point, we do need to draft an ordinance for this. The only other action item is having council support it going back there and supporting, I think it probably wouldn't hurt to have like a motion in a second, and at the council to basically support what CDA and Tourism Commission have already supported. It's just something that kind of, that's in minutes that's on the record for this project, I think wouldn't hurt. And then the other items can come later as the project's being developed. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think everybody's in agreement to move that forward then. Thanks for
Yep.
the work on that, Matt.
Yep.
Okay. Number 11, review and discuss developers agreement, the CDI grant. So the community development grant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt
So,
again.
at the last two meetings and approved on March 16th, councils approved the resolution for the CEI grant. After that meeting, I have worked with WEDC to basically submit all the paperwork for the CDI grant. One of the things that they essentially need before they can award it is a developer's agreement. So what you have before you is a draft developer's agreement that City Attorney Johnson helped me with. Really, the developer's agreement that WDC provided, I think it lacked some of the form that we typically have for our developer's agreement. And so as I said, Paul worked very hard pulling this together. One of the things to keep in mind is, and it's clearly stated in this developer's agreement, that basically everything in the through the WDC Community Development Investment Grant is a pass-through. So they have, the developer would have to submit the paperwork to the city, and then obviously we review it and then approve it, and then WDC will, the funds will be released. So, there's been some concerns on how this is gonna work. As I said, it's not really like your standard development where the developer is expected to put in X, Y, and Z, whether it's sewer, water, and streets. But this is, I think, the best attempt to kind of codify, or to kind of show their responsibility and the city's responsibility for this project. So I guess with that, any questions or need for clarifications?
Go ahead, Ian Gray.
So, I mean, it's awesome. I definitely want this to move forward, but I would really like to see at least some details of what the improvements are intended to be. Like, it's so incredibly vague. Like, how many units are there going to be? Like, what's the level going to, like, it's a little bit more information in there would be helpful.
Sure. And I can email that out to council. I do have a, I don't know, it's like 50-page project plan that they submitted as part of the grant. And I gave, I think, bits and pieces of that for when the resolution was approved, but I can get that to you, the whole project plan, if you want to look at that.
I mean, if we're approving basically a development agreement, I think it should at least be cited as like an addendum or something attached to this somehow.
Okay.
Like, has absolutely, like, we're basically approving them to do whatever they want. There is nothing in here that says that it has to be anything specific. It just has to be approved. So I think not just we need to have that information, it needs to be added to this development agreement that you want the city to sign.
Okay.
Yeah, that can be attached as Exhibit A or something along that line in one of these paragraphs.
That will,
Okay. Does that suffice, Ian?
yeah, and for the next meeting, that will be attached for sure.
Okay.
That won't be that'll take me 5 minutes.
Okay. So then this is okay to move forward to the regular meeting then? Does anybody else have any questions for Matt or concerns? Okay, thank you, Ian, that was a good suggestion. Okay. Number 12 is review and discuss the American Rescue Plan funds. And for that, I'm going to let Administrator Ellison talk about that.
All right, thank you. Kind of ending the regular agenda for tonight on some good news. We're half millionaires because we are getting 510,000 is the preliminary allocation that it looks like we'll be receiving. We'll get it directly from the federal government. If you've been kind of following along, first time that's ever happened, that every basically minor civil division or local unit of government is getting direct funding from the federal government. We'll have until December 31st of 2024, so we have a lot of time to spend it. So that's all really good news. We got a lot of money, a lot of time to spend it. Some of the other considerations, though, I think it's important to start talking about this because I've already been approached at the hardware store about, hey, could we buy this? And, people are looking at different pieces of equipment on, the fire department or things they'd like to see in the parks. And those are all great, great ideas. But unfortunately, there's very specific ways you can use this money. And so, I think starting to talk about it and knowing that there's limitations as well as the requirement that there's going to be detailed accounting of the uses of funds. And this is at the federal level. And so one of the approved uses, I believe, is going to be hiring staff to administer the program and provide all the reporting. Probably in larger communities than ours, but it's a little ironic that it's going to be so cumbersome that part of the money you get has to go right back into the reporting that might be required. But essentially for the thumbnail sketch of the uses, we'll be looking at things like responding to the public health emergency and addressing the negative economic impacts of the pandemic, replacing lost municipal revenue, and then there's the ability to invest in specific infrastructure products or projects, water, sewer, or broadband. And they use the word or, not and. So in the event we would do one of those, we can only do one of those is the current interpretation of that. So we're getting this in what they call two tranches, so basically two installments, one coming probably in the next 30 to 45 days, and one coming next year about the same time. We have to have the funding, in place to segregate those funds, and we're working on that now, so it gets deposited into a specific account and nothing goes into that or out of it except for those specific approved expenses. We're also working, together to try to find a good mix of potential uses to bring back to the council in the coming months to say, here's how we're thinking of allocating them, and it's going to be a balance of multiple priorities, trying to kind of stretch our dollars, but also to stretch our years. If you identify all these uses and spend it all this year, you may not even realize that you're going to be, maybe missing out on something in years 2 and 3. And so I think trying to find a balance of uses that try to impact, the community in different ways, but also over multiple years, I think is probably one of the ideal ways to do this. And so tonight is nothing more than letting you know we have money coming. Letting you know that we can't use it for just anything, but that there's work going on, and ultimately the city council will be the one to determine, what those priorities are and how we want to apply this money. So, stay tuned for more information, but ultimately, I think it's good news and will allow us the opportunity to do some, potentially unique things to help, address some of the negative impacts of the pandemic. At multiple layers of the community. So,
Alder Gray, did you have a question?
Would stormwater be an approved use for this?
So the National League of Cities has been asking that question to the Treasury Department, and we don't have that information yet. They use water, sewer, and broadband. And the question is, when you say sewer, do you mean any type of sewer, including storm sewer? Or is it just sanitary sewer? And they haven't had that clarification yet. I do know that there's a separate infrastructure bill. Don't know exactly how that's gonna roll out. But, I think the guidance they've been giving is, if you have another way to pay for these or another special program that's helping, like the infrastructure program, use that first, because these funds are sort of multi-purpose. And so I guess we'll wait and see kind of what that next bill, if it passes, what it contains. But that's an open question right now about the storm sewers.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you for the update, Kyle. We'll move on then to number 13, which is to convene to close session per state statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically Director of Public Works recruitment plan and interim staffing plans. We will not be taking any further action this evening, and we will not be coming back on the air. So everybody have a good night. Signing off. I need a motion and a second to move into closed session for the reasons read.
Holger Gray will move to closed session for the reasons read.
McCabe, seconds.
All right, I have a motion and a second to move into closed session. All those, or I guess, I'm sorry, Pat, would you please take the roll?
Gray. McCabe. Pifferone.
Aye.
Reed. Ryan.
Aye.
Tome. Adams.
Aye.
Motion carries.